Hi everyone, cassydraws here and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going to be leading you through my newest painting, Hope. I'm going to be giving you tips and tricks along the way, so let's go ahead and get started. As a lot of you may know, I am a huge fan of Grumbacher products as I started using them quite some time ago during my art journey, and I'm so blessed to say that my content here on Twitch and on YouTube is sponsored by Chartpak, Grumbacher, and Molotov, so I will include their links down below. Please do yourself a favor and check out their website. They have an incredible array of products, and I'm so honored to be a Chartpak artist ambassador, so please check them out, and let's get started and take a look at these colors. So first up we have cadmium yellow medium hue, then I'm using cadmium red medium hue, burnt umber, which I will use quite frequently. I use a little bit of phthalo blue. I'm also using burnt sienna quite heavily. Of course, Mars black. And last but not least, we have titanium white, and this is all from the Grumbacher Academy Acrylic series. Alright, let's go ahead and get started. So these are the brushes that I'm going to be using for the background of this piece. This one is a 3/4 Grumbacher Golden Edge squared brush. The next brush that you're going to see here is also a Golden Edge Grumbacher. This is a size 8 and it is a filbert, so it is a rounded tip brush. And then this one here is a filbert as well. This is a size 4, so that's going to be the smallest size brush that I use for this background. These two brushes here are just from the dollar store. They are regular makeup powder brushes that I'm going to use to kind of feather the edges of the background. What I'm doing here is I have my mixture of phthalo blue, yellow, a little bit of Mars black, and burnt umber together, and this is going to be the main base of the background. So I am just going ahead and I'm outlining the subject, and I'm going to start filling in the entire background with this color. So I definitely think it is worth noting that as you see me complete this background here, not all of the tones of green that I used were the same, and that is totally a-okay. This is just a base and a starting point for us for our background, so not to worry if it's not all the same. Now what you see me doing here is I'm taking a much darker combination of the colors that I was using earlier, and I'm just going ahead and I'm going to start working in those shadowed areas of our background. So I'm going to continue that dark color towards the left-hand side of the canvas, and then I'm also going to start bringing in a lighter shade of green as well. So the top left-hand side has a lot more effects, and it is definitely lighter than the far right and the bottom right as well. So you can definitely see me starting to bring in different tones of green and kind of just starting to block in this bokeh effect. Now for this section here, I am going back and forth with the original shadow color and the new green and kind of bouncing back and forth and really feathering those out so the background is pretty seamless and blended nicely. Now this part was very stressful for me. I have never tackled a bokeh effect ever in my paintings, so this is kind of a new technique and I hope it will help you in your journey as well. This was very, very new for me. So I've created a much lighter green color. I've mixed this very heavily with yellow, and I'm just going in and I'm really starting to plot in those bokeh dots and where those highlights really start to come out on that far left hand side of the canvas. So I'm now continuing to add yellow and white to that color, kind of bouncing back and forth between a more green shade and a more yellow shade to kind of get this background to look a little bit more natural and blended. There are so many colors in this background that you really kind of have to adjust and tweak those colors as you go. So you will see my hand leave the canvas, adjust my color multiple times, and then come back in with that powder brush and really just kind of punch the canvas and really try to get that blend. So now I'm coming in with a much lighter color. I have mixed the green with a lot of white this time and very minimal yellow. And I'm going in and I am punching in those bokeh dots and I'm really starting to get those highlights in. Now I feel like it's worth noting, as you just saw there as well, it is totally fine if you go over your sketch. It actually helps when you're painting the subject later on in the painting that there isn't a sort of thin line or a halo effect outside of your subject and to the background. So you're actually doing yourself a favor by kind of coming into your sketch a little bit. So I'm continuing to work those dots in, and the key that I will say for this part of the painting is to layer, layer, layer. If you have to come back in a few times, 6, 7, 8 layers, that is totally fine and will actually create a little bit more dimension in your painting as well. So I'm even going in with a darker low light color right there just to kind of punch that in even further, and I obviously did not like how it was highlighting, so I kind of came in, restarted, and regrouped. So there you can see the finished background. I'm very, very happy with it so far, and now we are going to start working on the subject. So I hope you enjoyed this background portion of the painting, and let's get started on the tiger face. So these are the brushes I'm going to use to create the tiger itself. This is a Grumbacher round in a size 1, one of my favorites. This is a Grumbacher Golden Edge Filbert in the size 4. This is the Grumbacher Golden Edge Round in a size 5. And lastly, we have the Grumbacher Golden Edge Round in a 00. Now, I prefer to start all of my paintings focusing on the eye of the subject before I complete anything else. So that is what we're going to work on first. So here I am taking a combination of a burnt umber Mars black and a little bit of titanium white, and I'm just going in and I'm starting to block in this tiger eye. So what I find helpful for me when I am painting big cats, and especially those that have markings on them, is actually blocking those markings in first. So I'm taking that original eye outline color and I'm just going in and I'm blocking in these stripes. It actually gives me a really good map as to where I need to put colors later on in the painting. So now that I have those mapped in, let's go ahead and start my favorite part of the painting process, and that is getting the eye of the subject completed. So I'm starting with my base color. I've chosen a sort of eggshell, a little bit slightly more yellow color, and I'm just going in and I'm laying that all over the base of the eye. Now, I am the first to admit that I paint very strangely and very sporadically, so I have changed gears here. While this eyeball is drying, I am going ahead and just plotting down the base layers for the surrounding area as well. So I'm currently painting the forehead, and then I will be working towards the nose and then the bottom of the eye as well with the base colors. So now that this eye has had time to dry, I'm going in with this beautiful robin egg blue, and I'm just slowly starting to block in the colors of the eyeball. How I paint my animal eyes is I basically work in chunks. I work from back to front and I deconstruct the eye and I try to find all of the different varying colors and tones within that eyeball to get it looking as realistic as possible. I'm going in here with a much darker blue color, and I'm also slowly going to start adding some brown in as well. So I'm just taking the eyeball almost like a clock. I'm going from 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock, and I'm just kind of working all the way around that pupil, getting all of those different shades in. There you could see I use a little bit of wet on wet mixing as well on the canvas. So sometimes I don't even want to use my palette paper to mix the color. I'm just going to mix it directly on the eyeball as well. So something as an example here right now is that burnt sienna going in there, and I'm really kind of mixing that in with a wet brush over top of the yellow and kind of fading it out. Now that I have darkened the outside of the eye, I'm going to take this original outline color and I'm going to start feathering in this fur texture detail, as well as I'm going to take a much lighter white shade and I'm going to start blocking in this above the eye color. So now that that base layer is done, I'm coming back in with a mixture of the outline color as well as that lighter gray color, and I'm coming in and I'm slowly starting to block in the shadows that will be on the fur around the eye. I am probably going to lead you through this and say the exact same thing multiple times through my painting, so I apologize if it gets redundant, but basically my process when painting fur starts with a mid-tone, so that base color, and then I'll come in with a shadow, and then I will follow up with a highlight. Now here I am, I'm starting to block in this beautiful orange color. This is where the sun is mostly hitting on the face, so you're going to see that it is much brighter than the rest of the painting once it is finished. So while the orange area dries, I'm going ahead and I'm bringing in a lighter gray into the tear duct area, giving it a lot more shine and the illusion that it is wet. So now I'm going ahead with a much whiter color. So I took my original base gray and I've added much more titanium white now. And I'm just going in and I'm starting to punch out these highlights. The lighting on this piece is so gorgeous, so I really need to make sure that those whites pop. So now I'm going to start working on the outline of the nose. So a lot of times in my animal paintings, I will start with the eye and that area, and then I will work towards the nose and then kind of come towards the middle. So here I am taking that original outline color and I'm just blocking in those black areas of the whiskers, the jowls, and then the nose. So now that the nose is blocked in, I'm going to take this mixture of burnt sienna, burnt umber, and a little bit of black, and I'm going in and darkening these areas. Now on the reference, this section of the face is very heavily shadowed, and so I'm just blocking in the light and the dark areas with basic colors, and then I will go and refine them further a little bit later. So it's important to remember to extend this texture and your paint up past the background. So here I'm adding in those tiny little fur details, and you're going to see me do this quite often throughout the rest of the painting. That way it removes that halo effect and there's no sharp, harsh lines. Now what I'm taking here is my Molotow acrylic pump marker, and I'm going ahead and I'm just drawing these lines in that are the eyebrow hairs that extend into the background. What you can do is also use a liner brush with a little bit of water and titanium white and create the thinnest, lightest lines that you can that extend from the face. If you add a little bit too much water like I did here, you can go ahead and dab it dry with the paper towel, or I use my finger, and you can go back in and just use a wet liner brush with a little bit of titanium white and just go ahead and go over it. So now that I have darkened this area a little bit further, I'm going in with that mid-tone orange, and I'm just going in and I'm lightly blocking in some fur texture. So how I do my fur is I take a nice rounded brush and I just go in and I lightly press on the canvas, kind of fanning the brush out a little bit, and that kind of gives the illusion that there is a clump of hair there. And that's just how I've always learned how to do it and kind of taught myself, is just kind of press into the canvas, fan that brush out, and then if you need it to be a fine tip like I'm doing now, barely put any pressure on that canvas and just use the first almost like millimeter of the brush to kind of create those thin lines. So as we saw in the reference, this tiger is looking up into the sun. So right now I'm adding this beautiful bright orange, and that's where that sun is really hitting that fur and kind of illuminating this tiger. I want the rest of the area to be dark, and for those areas that I'm working on now to stand out the most. So I will say in this next section, I kind of bounce back and forth between multiple things. So I am working on this fur texture with this orange color, and then I'm also going to start the beginning of the mouth, and then I will start to touch up the black areas as well, those stripes and kind of shadowed areas. I apologize that I kind of work back and forth and very sporadically. Sometimes I'm not even really consciously thinking about what I'm painting. I'm kind of just going with what feels right. And the best part about acrylic is that you can bounce back and forth as things are drying and just work on different areas and keep your productivity high. So rather than sitting there waiting for the painting to dry, just pick another area and start working on something. Or if an area of the painting calls to you, kind of like I'm switching now, or all of a sudden I'm back on the nose, go for it. Just paint whatever feels right and just kind of come and meet towards the middle once all the sections are completed. I'm taking this darker gray now and I'm just going in towards the nose, and I'm going to start bulking up this nostril so that it doesn't look so much like a void but begins to start to look like an actual tiger nose. There's going to be a lot of highlighted areas, almost glistening as well, so I'm excited to show that to you, but for now we're just going to stay with this dark gray tone and really start bulking this out. One thing, and again, I'm going to stress this a lot in my paintings and my videos, have fun with painting and enjoy. There is no right or wrong way of doing something. And a lot of times our paintings, like I remember very clearly right now at this point in the painting thinking, this is not turning out the way that I want. And I've already spent like 6 hours working on this. Where is this painting going to go? And that for me is called, I call it the teenage phase. It's going to go through this awkward moment where you're like, I don't know if I like this or not. And then there's a breakthrough. Wait for that breakthrough. Mine happened actually when I was working on the body of the tiger, which we will get to later on. But don't stress, have fun. This is supposed to be an enjoyable process. Just go with the flow and paint what feels right. Like I'm back on the nose now. Watching these videos back, I'm like, my painting process makes no sense. I bounce back and forth, sorry, but I go back and forth, work on different areas. Here I'm working on the whiskered areas that get very dark and sort of heavy near those black stripes. And you know, I'm just going with it. I'm not calculating anything while I'm painting. I'm just having fun and working on what feels right. So if I could offer you one piece of advice, that would be it, is have fun, don't stress, and don't expect it to be a masterpiece right off the bat. It's going to take a little bit of work and it's going to take a little bit of back and forth. I fix a lot of different areas in my paintings many, many times. So now because I went over the right side of the face with the background color, I'm going to go in with a base gray and I'm just going to block that back in. And I'm also taking that same gray and I'm going to block in the sort of left-hand side, the cheek and jowl area with that same color. Multiple times throughout this painting, you are going to see me block out these black whiskers or striped areas. It's very easy to go overboard with your fur texture, and sometimes I have to rein it in and kind of punch that black color out further just to make it stand out that much more. I'm taking the fur texture now and I'm just going over. You'll see my hand leave the canvas quite often. I'm mixing different kinds of gray just so it's not all the same tone and the same value. I'm mixing multiple grays and I'm just going in and really starting to block out that fur. So now what I am doing is I'm going ahead and I'm adding those glistening areas of the nostril just down kind of in that corner, and I'm also bulking up the inside of the nostril as well. Super important to add those highlights. It really makes something come to life and look much more realistic. So now I'm adding in this cute little pink tongue. This was the part of the reference that completely sold me. So I added in the little pink tongue. I will go back and I will shadow that as well. But I've switched gears and I'm just blocking in this dark sort of jowled area. And then I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in the right-hand side with the highlighted fur area. And then I'm going to start working on the chin as well. I'm taking my acrylic pump markers again from Molotow, and I'm going to start working on these front whiskers. Now this can be very intimidating considering that our background is pretty much finished and that gradient is just how I want it. So I always get a little bit nervous adding in these whiskers. You can see that I'm kind of delaying with, oh, I need to highlight this nose some more just randomly. So I finally found the courage to continue working on those whiskers. But my biggest piece of advice is, again, have fun. You can always go over, try to mix that background color as best as you can, and then go over it if you need to. Now I'm starting to block in underneath the chin. I'm bringing a dark gray followed by an almost sort of black color, and I'm starting to block in these dark textures underneath the chin area. This was one of my favorite parts to paint. I find it very, very freeing. I can kind of make my own texture. I can make my own fur patterns. So I'm having a lot of fun here, and I'm just kind of blocking in this dark shadowed area. I always work dark to light. That's just my style. Some people will work light to dark and etc. Totally okay. So in this case, you would reverse what I'm doing here, but I'm just going in and I'm blocking these hairs. Make sure that when you're painting, you're not putting all of the hairs in one direction. You're kind of going up, you're going down, you're going out, sideways, just as I'm doing here with this white highlight. You can see me kind of going at many different directions, and that's going to also enhance the realism of the painting. No tiger or lion or leopard is going to have all of their fur going in the same direction. I mean, they are running through the forest or the jungle. They are running through, they are messy, they are dirty, and they're going to have their hair absolutely everywhere. So you can see I'm adding in these textures. Again, I'm fanning the brush and bringing it to a point as I hit the very end of the chin, and that's going to kind of create illusions of clumps of fur, and then you can go in and do one or two singular hairs as you wish. So I'm taking my acrylic pump marker and I'm working on the bottom half of the whiskers now. So I'm just dragging this pen along the canvas, and what I'm doing also is I'm going back and thickening some of the bases of the whiskers just so that they are set apart and not all of them are the same thickness. So I'm taking a much lighter gray now, almost white, and I'm going in and I am popping out that highlight on the chin much further now. So you can see that I'm taking a much smaller brush and a thin amount of paint, and I'm just going in over that gray and the black. I'm leaving some of the gray and black to shine through, and that will definitely give you the illusion that there is much thicker hair there with lots of different layers. So make sure you don't cover over all of your work previous on that base layer, but you're just adding in those little highlights. Here I am adding in the base gray that we will paint over with highlights and lowlights. This, you can see now the shape of the face starting to come in, and I'm going to bring this black paint and I'm going to continue doing those fur textures all the way down the side of the jowls. So just as we had done with the chin, I am now bringing in a lighter gray over our dark shadows and our base tone, and I'm just going in and I'm starting to add in those highlighted hairs. Now I remember when I was painting this is when the face really started to take shape for me. Up until now, it had felt very flat while I was painting it, so adding these highlights was a really, really nice change and kind of gave me a lot more confidence moving forward. So now I'm adding in another stripe. I'm blocking in this black striped area. It definitely helps with determining where to put your shadows and your highlights. And so it's essentially a nice little map for me. So I'm blocking this in and I'm going to add now the darker colors towards the ear and moving down towards the face. So we're kind of getting into a new section of painting here, which I am super excited. I know there's a lot of layering to be done, so I apologize again if this is a little bit redundant, but I'm trying to give as much information as possible to my process. So skip forward if you find this very, very boring, but we're now moving towards the ear. So hopefully this is a little bit more exciting. So for the ear, the base, I am using a dark sort of charcoal color, and I'm just going in and I'm blocking in the entire shape of the ear that has kind of been covered by the background and just working on getting that entire shape put down. So now that the entire ear base has dried, I'm taking a combination of Mars Black and Burnt Umber, and I'm just starting to work on that inner portion of the ear that is very heavily shadowed. I am also going to take that exact same color and I'm going to start outlining the ear as well. The back of a tiger's ear is very, very dark, usually with a white spot on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and start adding that in. And now you can see that ear totally starting to take shape. So now that that ear is drying, I'm going to go ahead and take my acrylic pump marker and I'm just going to start working on the opposite side of the mouth with the whiskers as well. So I'm taking this the same method that I did before, dragging it along the canvas and then making sure I go back and thicken some of them that I think need a little bit more volume. So now that the ear has had time to dry, I'm going in with a lovely eggshell color and I'm just starting to block in that fur texture coming out from within the ear. So I'm going in with a much lighter color now. This is virtually almost white, and I'm just going in and I'm going to continue adding those hairs throughout the ear. What I would recommend while working through this ear section is to really thin down the white paint that you are using, which will allow you to really roll this paint onto the canvas no problem and keep it the thinnest it can be on that liner brush. So make sure your brush is a little bit wetter than normal, mix it in with that white paint and really make sure that it's thin, allowing you to get these thin wispy-like lines. So now that the ear is completed and we are working down towards the bottom of the face, I am outlining these stripes once more, and then I'm also going to start bringing that gray color all the way to the bottom where it really feathers out just in front of the tiger's chest. While that area dries, I'm going back underneath the chin now, and I'm just taking this dark black and burnt umber color, and I'm just starting to work these stripes in and this dark shadowed area underneath so that it really starts to look 3D and as though the skin is folding. So now that the shadowed area is complete, I'm taking a much lighter color now, a mixture of white and gray, and I'm just going in and I am adding in highlights to where the sun is hitting that furthest fur away from the body. So now I'm taking that original orange color that we started with, and I'm just going ahead and I am blocking in this bottom left part of the head that is going to blend into that gray color. I am also now taking this very, very dark orange meets burnt umber color, and I am starting to block in the shadowed area that is just below the neck and just before the shoulders. So I'm taking a darker gray now over that base color, and I'm just starting to block in the shadows. The bottom part of the tiger's face is very heavily shadowed, followed by a really white bright spot on this section where I'm working right now. So I'm just kind of working back and forth between highlight and shadow and really trying to make this look 3D. Just as we had done with the gray color, I'm taking this beautiful burnt umber and burnt sienna color, and I'm just starting to do the shadows on the orange section as well. I'm also going to take a dark burnt umber and black and start really sectioning out that behind the ear portion that is hidden from the sun. So I'm taking my original outline color that we used for the back of the ear and the eyes from the beginning of the video, and I'm just going in and I'm starting to block in those markings beneath the ear and lower down towards the neck. I'm also taking my white and gray color here and I'm slowly blending out the white into the orange. In the reference, there are no harsh lines, there's no harsh sections of white and orange, so I'm just trying to go in and mix those colors together to create a seamless blend. Now this part of the painting was a lot of fun for me, and something that I haven't done a lot in my paintings is work on dramatic lighting. So basically what I'm doing here in this zoomed out version is I am taking a dark umber mixed with black and I'm creating those shadows underneath the ear, and then I am slowly blocking in those sunspots with that beautiful bright orange that I'm putting in now. And I did not focus on keeping the color the exact same. As you can see, there's about 3 to 4 different orange tones on that shoulder area so far, as I wanted it to be a little bit more natural, that light shining down. It's not all going to be one color, so don't be afraid to kind of mix and change things up, lighten things. There I'm using a lot more white, and I'm just coming in and starting to block in the different sections of this tiger's back. So now I'm going into the base layers that I've already laid down for the shadows, and I'm just going in and refining them a little bit further. I'm bouncing back and forth between that Mars Black and Burnt Umber and between this beautiful coffee color that I am now adding. A word of advice and a little bit of caution, and I have done this before, be careful not to wipe out your shadow completely. Looking back at this video, that Burnt Umber area looks very intimidating and very dark, and I at this moment wanted to kind of lighten it up, but I knew that this piece had very dramatic lighting, so I kept it, and I was hoping that it would kind of blend seamlessly into that orange color. And I think you'll see later in the video that it actually kind of worked out that I kept it as dark as I did. Once all of the tiger's back is completed, it's not as dark as it seems. So with dramatic lighting, keep that in mind. It may look a little strange at first, but as you see me adding in this beautiful sort of orange and yellow color, it does kind of lighten up automatically on its own. So it's really strange how the eye will do that. So just keep that in mind if you're working on a really dramatic piece, that it might look strange on its own, but paired with the entire painting, it will really start to come together. So now I'm taking just pure titanium white now, and I'm going over this area that is really being hit by the sun and brightening up this white. You may find that when you first place white down onto your canvas, it's never bright enough, so you may need a few layers. Just go over the original base layers that you've put down and really just pop out that white. If you find that it's not white enough, you can also take the Molotow pump markers. Those are very, very opaque, and just go over the brightest areas if needed. So this area that I'm working on now is probably one of my favorite parts of the painting. I had a lot of fun creating these fur textures, and it was actually something that I was really trying to work hard on with this piece, as well as the lighting, was trying to find my style. I'm a relatively new painter, and into the industry, I'm very, very new to wildlife and pet portraits. So I'm really trying to find something that sets me apart from others and still keeps that kind of painterly feel, as well as striving for realism. So this is me kind of working through something, and I'm glad that I can share it with you as well. Finding a style can be so difficult and takes such a long time. So don't be afraid if your paintings or your drawings turn out different every single time. I feel like mine definitely have since I started painting. So this was a lot of fun and really just an experiment for me. So I'm glad I was able to capture it on camera and share it with you. But this section, you'll see me here really, really work hard on that fur texture. I'm not getting caught up in the little details and trying to make it photorealistic. I really was trying to go for a painterly style. So again, watching this tutorial, you may have different incentives or motives to what you want to do in your paintings. But for me, for this video and for my own personal growth, I was really trying to work on those textures and just finding my style and who I want to be. So I'm going through and I'm taking this darker gray now, and I'm really trying to darken up this front chest area. Near the bottom of the chest in the reference, there is a very light patch that we will start to add, but there's a lot of these clumps of big fluffy bits of fur that combine that toffee kind of taupe color into this beautiful gray. So I'm just working through that now, again, working on those layers, multiple layers, and then just blending that together. And you can see in this piece of the video right there that I've kind of mixed that taupe and that gray together, and it's really starting to kind of gradient towards that chest and the shoulder area. So I'm starting to extend this darker color now to the tiger's back. So you can see me doing this sort of burnt umber meets a little bit of orange and white, and I'm just slowly starting to block in these shadows even further. I'm taking that original outlined color now, the Mars Black and the Burnt Umber together, and I am blocking in the stripes now that are on this tiger's shoulder. And you can definitely see it's a lot of back and forth with many different colors. Again, I work very sporadically all over the canvas, so I have multiple mixed colors that are just, you know, bless acrylic, but slowly drying on my palette that I'm trying to use up. And so I'm going back and forth, and once something dries, I'm kind of attacking another area. So again, I'm sorry if my process of painting is a little bit strange and maybe even confusing, but it's just how I work, and I'm really trying to kind of follow through and show you my entire process. So I'm filling in now this whole back of the shoulder color with this beautiful orange again, and I guess I just got tired of looking at the white space in the bottom left, and so I wanted to fill it in and then continue working on something else in my usual cassydraws style. I'm going ahead now with the original outline color, and I'm just going in and blocking in those stripes on the back of the tiger. For the remainder of the video, I am going to be working on this back left-hand portion, and I'm going to be flipping between the stripe color. I'm also going to be using that burnt umber with the orange, and then I'm also going to be using that beautiful eggshell highlight color as well. So I'm going to be flip-flopping back and forth. You're going to see me work on those shadows, starting to block in the fur and the muscle definition, and then I'm also going to be putting in those highlights where the sun is hitting. So for the remainder of the video, enjoy, and then I will catch up with you a little bit further once this section is completed. And there you have it. Here is our finished painting, A Ray of Hope, and this marks the end of today's walkthrough and tutorial. I hope you enjoyed and found it helpful. Please leave a comment down below your favorite part of today's video or future ideas that you'd like me to cover in other videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like today's content and hit that bell for future notifications of when I post more videos. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you soon in our next upload, or I will see you live over on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/cassydraws, and of course, feel free to check out my website, cassydraws.com. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.